So in databases, there's a thing called stored procedures, and it's no different with Postgresql. We're able to create stored procedures and run any kind of logic inside the database engine instead of our application. So that can free up a bunch of resources and just improve the overall performance of your apps, because the database is pretty good at manipulating data. So in this video, we'll cover creating a simple stored procedure in our PostgreSQL database and then calling that stored procedure from Java, from the Java code. Okay, so this is pretty much where we left off. It's a simple app that just creates items as you type in their names. But for this, I'd like to, well, I'm gonna stop my PostgreSQL Docker container. And then to clean up the resources, I'm going to tell Docker compose to go down. So that'll get rid of the container and also any data that's been stored. So I'm going to fire it back up. So this is now a clean database. If we connect, wait a minute, if I use another Docker container to run the pSQL program, and I need my password, but then connect to the test DB, and I do a show me all my tables, then there's no relations found. All right, so everything is clean. Let's think about what we want to do. So I just want to demonstrate how to make a stored procedure. So it's got to be simple. I'm going to take this item class that we have already here. I'm going to navigate to there. And then I'm actually going to get rid of all of these getter and setter methods, and then I'll just make these ones public because it's not really a big deal. And then I'll have a public float price. So each of these items is now going to be maybe a product in a catalog or on some online store. So I changed up the item, and now I have all of these things, but I'll just say title equals the input. All right, but now I'm going to have to initialize this price to some value. So I'll have a new random in here, and I'll say next float. And then that item will get saved. Let me run this code. And then type in item 1. Save that item. So if we go to our PostgreSQL and I do a select, or well, first I want to see what's going on here. So items is in there. And doing a select all from items, we see that that item is in here, and the next, well, the random float that was generated is now in the price column. Okay, so I'll do item 2 and maybe item 3 as well. Okay, that's some good data to work with. I'm gonna quit out of my app, and now I'm gonna create the stored procedure. So in this case, I'd like the stored procedure to increase the price of all the items in there. So it's going to apply inflation. Let's create a stored procedure to do that. I'm gonna have a file, call it create proc.sql, and this is in my resources folder. And I'd like to focus on the syntax for this thing. So there's a couple of things that that might seem a little weird, but let's get started. The first line is going to be create or replace procedure. So if you're going to update this procedure later, then it's going to replace it. Here we give it a name. So I'll just say apply inflation. This thing can take parameters. I'm just going to leave it as a parameter list for now. Then it's the as keyword. So create this thing as the following logic. And then here's something weird. You need a special token for this thing. So it's $2 token, and then you need that thing twice. So the logic is going to be going between these two tokens. And then it's begin end with a semicolon. And now this is going to be standard SQL code. So we can say update items, set price to price times 1.1. So this will add 10% to the price. And that's it. The last bit that's a little strange is we need to specify the language that this thing is created in. So language, and it's going to be PLPG. So I'm guessing it's procedural language PostgresQL. And then I'm going to take this SQL and I'm going to paste it in here. So it'll create that procedure. And now to call it from this terminal, it's simple as saying a call and then the procedure name. And that was apply inflation. So now if we take a look at the items table, this thing's price increased with a bit. So it's working. But now I'd like to call it from my Java app. So I'm going to go to my item repository and create a brand new method called apply inflation. And this thing will have to somehow get hold of the underlying connection object, create a statement, and then call the stored procedure. So there's quite a bit of work in there. We're going to make use of a lambda expression and also some other functions on this EM, this entity manager object. So starting off, I need to begin a transaction. So it's going to be get transaction begin. And then finally, I'll commit that transaction. Then I need a session, something called a session. Now this is simply gotten from the entity manager class, and we call this unwrap method, and we pass in session.class. Up next, there's a method on this session object called doWork, and we're going to give it some work to do. And this work is a functional interface, I believe it's called. It's got one method on there, and that one method takes a connection as an argument. So we get a connection in there, and now we can use this connection inside of this thing. So this connection is a SQL connection. So based on that, we can do things like create statements, which is what we're going to be doing. So I'll create a statement, and then eventually I'll execute it. Let's see here. The statement code that I want to execute is going to be exactly what I used to call this procedure inside of my pSQL application. So I can pretty much just copy and paste that call apply inflation string. All right, so I'm going to take this code, this apply inflation function, and I want to call it from somewhere in here. So this is my main method. And while this app is running, I'm going to be accepting user input. If the input is -q, I'm going to quit. But if the input is equals to -u, I'm going to apply that inflation and take more money from my customers. So let's see here. It's going to be on my repo object, and I'm going to apply that inflation. All right, let's see. I'm going to run this code. And then I'm going to run -u. User input is -u. Okay. So now if I do select all from my items table, we see here that this thing's price has increased again. Well, all of their prices has increased, but this one's the easiest to see. So that's calling a procedure. So the thing with a procedure is it doesn't return any values. So you won't be returning any results from a table, select, or whatever from a stored procedure. That's done with functions. And I think I'll make that the topic of the next video.